as flies walk on his face. Mark finally wakes up on the ground with a killing headache and blames it on drinking too much. At that moment, he smells something weird and turns to find a dead rat covered in flies. A startled Mark sits up and realizes he is inside a very strange room. It is empty except for a locker against the wall and the light on the ceiling. The big iron door indicates this is a vault. Mark tries to open it, but the handle will not even budge. Then he pounds on the door and asks his friends to open it, thinking this is a prank by them. However, nobody answers. When he tries to use his phone, he has no signal. He tries opening the locker too, but the lock will not budge either, and he cannot see anything inside. When he tries to sniff the locker, the flies bother him again. Mark looks for security cameras, but he cannot find any. He threatens to pee in the room if he is not rescued soon, and since there is still no answer, he pees on the wall while insulting his captors. For the next few hours, Mark just sits around and talks to himself, trying to guess how he ended up here, but not remembering much. He realizes that if someone does not pick him up soon, he will have to poop on the floor too. Then he starts yelling, saying that he is hungry, thirsty, and needs to call his boss because he is missing a day of work. He begins pounding on the door and even takes off his belt to make more noise, but it is all pointless. After several minutes of complaining about the lack of answer and the smell of the dead rat, Mark starts kicking the locker, which does nothing either. Then he climbs on top of the locker and demands to be let out, yelling again to no avail. The next day, maggots have appeared on the rat's body. Mark has slept on the floor again and wakes up to notice nothing has changed. He checks his phone, and when he accidentally drops it, it breaks. It was not useful anyway since he still has no signal. Not being able to deal with his thirst anymore, Mark decides to pee in his shoe and drink it to stay hydrated. It tastes disgusting, so he tries to pretend it is beer. After yelling some more, he puts on the wet shoe before kicking the rat in the door. Then he hits the light and notices something inside it. He hits it harder to make it fall and finds a key. Mark is scared of what he may find, but he still opens the locker, revealing 2 gas canisters and some tools. First, Mark uses the hammer and chisel on the door, which ruins the paint but does not even dent the metal. Next, he struggles with the canisters until a tool helps him open them. Putting all the equipment together takes a while because he is not familiar with it, but eventually he manages to make it work, and now he has a functioning blowtorch. He immediately turns the flame towards the sprinkler on the ceiling, but nothing happens. Afterward, Mark uses the blowtorch on the door. It creates a burnt mark on the metal, but it will not break it. He tries hitting the burnt area with a hammer. However, it is pointless too. Furious, Mark throws the locker on the floor and hits it for a while. Then he climbs on it to reach the sprinkler and breaks it with the hammer. For the next few minutes, Mark takes out his anger on every object he can reach until everything is in pieces. He only stops when he realizes he is wasting too much of his body water. Sitting on the floor, he starts going through the things he knows about his current situation and concludes that someone wants to kill him very slowly while watching him suffer. At that moment, he notices a hole in the wall and decides to start making it bigger with the tools. Dust gets in his eyes while he works, but that only makes him angrier and more eager for revenge. Even when he hurts his hand with a hammer, Mark keeps on working, only stopping when he needs to rest to recover energy. Eventually, he is too drained, he inhales some gas from the container that causes him to pass out. Thankfully, he wakes up quickly and closes the tank before something bad could happen. Next, he eats the maggots from the rat's body while sarcastically saying they are healthy and organic. They taste awful, but he still eats as many as he can. Lastly, he pees in his shoe again and drinks it, which almost makes him puke. After working on the wall for a while, Mark finds the metal reinforcements. He immediately gets the blowtorch and laughs while using the flame to successfully break the metal. Assuming he has reached the middle of the wall, he announces he will get out soon. Then he falls asleep on top of the locker. Later, the flies wake up Mark again, and he immediately starts working on the hole. This time, he lasts long enough to finally reach the other side. Nobody answers when he talks, so he keeps working until the hole is big enough to push his body through. After lots of struggle, he reaches the other room and is devastated to find a vault just like his. This door will not open either, and he pounds on it with great fury. When Mark turns around, he notices a fallen lamp, a coffin, and a chain hanging from the ceiling. Pulling this chain turns on a light. Worried about the possible contents of the coffin, Mark reaches through the hole to get his chisel in case he needs a weapon. Then he opens the coffin and finds a sleeping woman in it. He pokes her a few times, and nothing happens. But after a second, she wakes up screaming. The woman panics because she thinks Mark wants to hurt her and rushes to the door while speaking a language he does not understand. Since the door will not open, the woman goes to the other vault through the hole. Mark tries to follow her and says it is all right, but this makes her scream even more, so he stays behind. He collapses while realizing how ridiculous it is to say that it is all right and starts laughing, only stopping when the woman throws the rat through.
And starts laughing, only stopping when the woman throws the rat through the hole. Mark decides to turn off the light and sleep in the coffin. The woman inspects the vault and pees in a corner. The next day, the woman crosses the hole with the chisel in hand and pokes Mark until he wakes up. Noticing they are still trapped, he turns around and goes back to sleep, so the woman turns on all the lights and gives him the chisel. Mark falls off the coffin when he tries to get out, and the woman then gives him the hammer, clearly wanting him to make another hole. After making her choose their next wall, Mark makes the woman hold the chisel while he hammers. However, the woman is afraid of getting hurt and takes her hands back. Since she refuses to cooperate like that, Mark agrees to hold the chisel and let her do the hammering. The woman does not hit strong enough and the wall does not even have a scratch, so Mark has no choice but to do it all himself again. Whenever he takes a break, she tries to do a little bit of work too, only to hurt her hand. Mark keeps wondering who put him here while watching her, and starts getting attracted to her. Suddenly the woman runs to the other room to pee and Mark follows her, so she grabs a glass shard to defend herself because she thinks he wants to abuse her. He throws one of his shoes at her and using gestures, he asks her to pee in it so he can drink it. At first the woman refuses, so he yells at her until she changes her mind. She makes him turn around before relieving herself and hands him back the shoe. Afterward Mark drinks her pee and leaves a bit for her so she can stay hydrated too. He also eats some maggots and tries to share them, but she turns him down. When Mark starts considering eating the rat, the woman stops him, since that would make him sick instead of actually helping him. Later while Mark works, the woman talks about her home life in Africa and cries, but he still cannot understand her. Desperate to distract her, Mark starts singing rather badly, and the woman laughs. He asks her to sing too and she shares a traditional song in her lovely voice. She pounds on the wall to guide the rhythm and Mark starts hammering to the same tempo. This distracts him and he ends up hammering his hand. Noticing that he is bleeding, the woman breaks some fabric from her hat and bandages his hand. Now Mark has no choice but to hold the chisel and let her hammer. Even though she is very slow, she accidentally hits his hand anyway. However, he says it is fine and makes her keep going. Suddenly the handle on the door moves. The woman rushes to open it to no avail. Mark follows her to try too, but it does not work either. He pounds on the door as he yells for help and the woman cries. Refusing to give up, Mark goes back to the wall and makes the woman start hammering again. At that moment the door handle moves again and the woman rushes to open it, however it still does not budge. A furious Mark threatens to torture and kill their captors one day before the duo gets back to work. As soon as the woman starts hammering, the door handle moves again. Mark points out that it is a trap and makes her ignore it. The more they hammer, the more the door handle moves, and it only stops if they turn around. Once they realize this, the duo starts moving toward the door but they walk backwards so they do not look at it. This time they manage to open the door and enter the other room, which is also a vault. Here they find an open grave, a red tombstone with no inscription, and a fallen chandelier. Mark checks the grave but finds nothing inside, so he assumes it is for them. They decide to keep digging inside the grave and the woman hopes that the turning around trick will work again. However, as they start digging, the door stays the same. After many hours of digging, Mark collapses with a light fever. He furiously starts yelling insults at their captors and wonders if they want him to eat the woman. She thinks she is about to die, but Mark swears he will never do such a horrible thing and has a breakdown. Then the woman pulls at his arm and when he refuses to move, she slaps him. Mark does not have the strength to stand up, so the woman keeps kicking him and pulling his arms until she can push him out of the hole. Now it is her turn to have a breakdown, but unlike Mark, she yells at God instead of their captors. Then she puts her tears in Mark's mouth to hydrate him. Getting desperate, she undresses Mark and they end up getting naughty on the floor. After a good nap, Mark wakes up next to his partner instead of flies. He crawls to the coffin to tear off the upholstery and puts it on top of the woman as a blanket before falling asleep again. Moments later, the door handle starts rotating and Mark quickly wakes the woman up so they can move. They're both very weak and can barely stand, but they offer each other support to move backwards without looking at the door. When it finally opens, they turn around and are shocked to discover they are in paradise. It seems they were Adam and Eve all along and they had to learn their right to happiness after lots of teamwork and effort. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.